Welcome back to the class, everyone. The much anticipated KAM Lightspeed bundle is currently available. And while this character isn't new by any stretch of the imagination, we do want to go over all of his modding, what relic levels you take him to, and even what comps you should be using him in. Because while he might not be new, he might be new to you. So we do have quite a bit to cover in this video, but I want to kick things off with talking about Ki-Adi-Mundi himself as a character, whether or not to apply his Jedi Council Zeta, what his mods need to look like, and then what relic levels you should probably be taking him to. Now we do need to start with mods because a lot of things are going to flow out after that. And KAM, as an attacker, will not be very surprising. He wants a lot of offense, crit chance, and speed in that order. So the reason why he wants offense is pretty obvious. He's the damage dealing attacker that can actually deal a good amount with the way his kit is set up between his base stats and all his uniques. In addition to that, he actually does want a lot of crit chance. And I realize this is starting to become an oddity nowadays because most teams out there have a way to cheat being able to crit, whether it be the Quizzentorius who just get to crit no matter what, the First Order team that gets advantaged like it's candy, or even the Gungans that are putting Vulnerable out as an AoE. But that being said, Ki-Adi-Mundi and really all the teams he's being put into don't have a way to cheat to be able to get crits. The closest thing they're really going to get is the fact that Jedi Anakin can give critical chance up to the entire team, but we really can't rely on that because number one, it's not that much, and number two, because it can be dispelled and there's the other things like buff immunity. So with those being the goal, what we want his overall modding situation to look like is obviously an offense set, that's how we get to the offense, an offset crit chance set, a crit damage triangle so that we can actually benefit from the crit chance set, and then typically what you're going to want is an offense primary on the arrow as well as an offense primary on the cross. You'll see that I'm not really following my own advice here because I have a 5% offense secondary on the arrow. If you can match the same exact thing, power to you. But I realize for most people, it's going to be probably easier to just find the offensive primary with maybe a crit chance secondary. Speaking of crit chance secondaries, you need a lot of them. Ideally, Ki-Adi-Mundi will have 80% crit chance or higher. You really need to break that threshold at a minimum to be able to justify having a crit damage triangle. I realize he will not be critting all the time, even at 80%, but it's enough for this damage to factor in. Not to mention, again, the crit chance from Jedi Anakin will help us get the rest of the way there. Now, the rest of his mods don't matter all that much. I do have a protection circle on him. I won't die on that hill. You can put a health one on him, but I really do think you want the offset crit chance set as well as crit chance secondaries. You'll notice on him, and when we've done these type of videos, sometimes I'll have ridiculous speeds on my characters. KAM's not really one of those characters. I have 9 speed on this mod. I have 9 speed on this mod. I have 14 here, which is a little bit higher. I have 24 on the triangle, which is actually rather good. But for the most part, what I'm going for here is crit chance secondaries. We have an 8% here. We have a 6% here. We have another almost 5% here, and then another almost 5% here, because getting his game up in that regards is going to be very important. We didn't show it, but if you realize how low his crit chances without any modding, it's only at 50%, which is really bad for an attacker, especially because, again, he doesn't have any way around that. Now, in regards to his overall relic levels, this is where crit chance is going to come into play again. We really want him to be at a minimum R7. He is justifiable at R8. I realize if you're on a budget, R5 is going to have to work for the time being, but I guess you just have to live with that not being ideal. I'm sure you've done that with plenty of characters before, so it's not all that bad. But going back to the crit chance here, you'll see that this is one of the major stats that he gets as an attacker, or his specific brand of attacker, where every single time it's going to go up. If I were to take him to Relic 8, I would actually get 3% more for free. So if I'm more limited in the modding area, I can make this up in relics. But overall, he's a damage dealing attacker. Don't hold him back on armor penetration, on damage, on critical chance, because he really does want all of it. Again, do what you can on the budget that you have for the resources that you've been given. Now that we've covered what his mods need to look like, overall what his relic levels need to look like, I'm going to get a lot of questions of whether or not he needs his Zeta, and the answer is just yes. It's very good for 2 main reasons. Number one, 30 speed across the board on your entire team is just good. That's going to be good on almost any single team out there that exists. Having that boost is great. It gets a little bit deeper than that, though, when you start to look at the teams he's going to be put on. We'll talk about this more here in a second, but the Qui-Gon Jinn team is going to be the most common leadership he's going to go under in GAC, and this is where it gets really dirty. when we dig into Qui-Gon Jinn's leadership, it's going to take the amount of speed that your characters have, and if you don't have the Omicron, it's going to times it by 3, and they're going to gain that amount of offense. However, if you have his Omicron, it's going to times that amount by 30. So you're not just giving your team 30 speed flat across the board. You are doing that. But in addition to that, you are giving everyone about 900 offense on top of it. And it's a little bit of a drop in the bucket for Qui-Gon with the amount of offense that they're already getting, but it's still nice to have on top of everything else. So again, don't slack on KAM Zeta if you can help it. It is going to be very good. Now, speaking of GAC and really anywhere that's in the entirety of the game that isn't the raid, we'll get to the raid comps here in a second, or rather the raid strategies. But when it comes to GAC, this is essentially the ideal comp. Qui-Gon Jinn's leadership with the Omicron is really where things are going to get nasty because of the massive amount of offense that he's passing the team through a variety of methods. Jedi Anakin is really the second most important of the team, even before KAM, so if you don't really have him and his explosive nature of being able to get mad and then use overpowering assault to annihilate an entire team, I'm not really sure what you're doing with the team to begin with. KAM honestly is the third most important member of the team because, again, the way that he's going to boost everyone through his uniques, adding offense, max health, speed, and then, you know, more offense on top of that because it gets doubled with Qui-Gon Jinn, or it doesn't get doubled, but it gets factored in again with Qui-Gon Jinn, is going to let Jedi Anakin do even more damage. Also, Armor Shred is really helpful because Jedi Anakin himself doesn't really have a great way of bypassing armor because his base is decent, but nothing to really go beyond that. Kelleron Beck is also a fairly new runner-up to the team. He is not essential to get this team going. You don't have to feel bad if you don't have the new Kelleron Beck. You can fill the slot with someone like Ayla, Shakti, Grandmaster Yoda, or even Ahsoka. As long as the next character in the team has both the Galactic Republic and the Jedi tags, it doesn't really matter all that much. There was even a time when I was using a really weak Kit Fisto in this 4th slot, specifically just to kind of tick Jedi Anakin off left and right so that he could keep getting more hits of damage. But overall, Kelleron Beck does address some of the issues with the Bad Batch counter, starting to give damage immunity with healing immunity. Or, sorry, he's giving, when he gets healing immunity, he gets damage immunity to the entire team. So next up is going to be Mace. You just kind of want to have a tank on the team. It can be GK, it can be Mace, it can be both. I'm not really all that picky what that needs to look like. Now that again is specifically for GAC, given the fact that it's based off of the GAC Omicron. If you're in pretty much any other game mode like Conquest or TW, you're going to want to go with the following below, and that is Kelleron Beck lead. And the reason is because Kelleron Beck's lead is better than Qui-Gon Jinn's, assuming Qui-Gon Jinn doesn't have access to his Omicron, which is going to be the case for this. KAM, Jedi Anakin, very similar reasoning that they're here, that we had in the Qui-Gon Jinn team. Mace as well. I put Shakti as the 5th just because Qui-Gon Jinn quite honestly isn't a good 5th under Kelleron Beck lead. Most of what he is giving to the team is in his leadership, and when you're not using him as leadership, you just kind of ditch him overall. Shakti is really not a hard 5th that you have to have. Again, she can be replaced by characters like Ayla or Grandmaster Yoda. I do really like to use support characters in the team overall though, because then you're getting to benefit from KAM's unique once again. This portion isn't part of his Zeta, it's just where it is, where Galactic Republic Jedi allies with a support or healer role have additional offense equal to 10% of their max health. So you can even put a character like Barriss or Luminar in there with a high max health, and you'll actually get to see them do a decent amount of damage. So there's a lot of flexibility in that 4th slot. Do not feel that you have to absolutely have Shock in there if you're using with clones or JML or Jedi Luke or whatever. Now in 3v3, we've kind of already alluded to this, but there really is only one comp, and that is because all 3 of these characters are essential. Qui-Gon Jinn you have to have for the lead, Jedi Anakin so that you can make sure people get punished when they kill Qui-Gon Jinn, which they basically have to, and then Ki-Adi-Mundi to boost the team even further and bypass things like armor that the team doesn't really have a great solution to. So those are going to be the main comps you're going to want to use. Now I do want to take a small second to address what he is going to do for you in the raid. And it's actually really cool because he can do 2 different things at the same time. Number 1, you can go with the more optimized, more efficient, higher ending score, and you can split your Jedi into the 2 following teams. Now, this is good. In fact, this is exactly what I do. But I'm going to show you an alternative that if you're a little bit lazy or you just don't want to farm Kelleron Beck or you have other projects going on, you can actually combine the 2 of the teams and end up doing this. Now, I've already showed how to do this team manually without KAM. I believe we used Plo Koon instead of KAM, kind of wanting to show what the original Jedi Lightspeed bundle could do. But as you can probably tell, if you look in the left-hand corner of the footage that is currently being shown here, you can auto parts of the raid. I only have up to R5 on my Luminara and Kit Fisto, but if you have Kit Fisto and Luminara up and running because of whatever reason, Cam as well in there, as well as Grandmaster Yoda and Qui-Gon Jinn, they can I mean, I say pretty much, but they're literally going to auto this tier that we're set on here. Now, I won't lie, this doesn't happen every single time. In fact, one of the things that can happen that almost happens right here is we get locked behind Droidica, and because it's an auto and I actually wasn't at the computer at the time, I went to go eat dinner when I hit this. You sometimes just get stuck behind them, but for the most part, your team has a lot of dispel, so as long as they're not horribly inefficient with it, you kind of can just get past it again on full auto. And this actually doesn't even take that long. I realize it is sped up 2 times right now, but even then, the whole battle it goes for less than 4 minutes. Because one of the things that's happening here is not only is Cam feeding into extra offense with his 20% offense from his unique, but that little tidbit that we showed about him turning health into offense really gets amplified in the Luminara and Kit Fisto team, because number one, they're doing true damage based off of their offense, and then on top of that, they're already given a pretty massive health boost in here. So you're getting to double down, and as you can see, even when 1, 2, or 3 characters go into counter, it's enough to essentially level the entire team, which is a bit ridiculous, and honestly, I'm all for it, because anything making the raid easier for everyone is kind of a plus. So again, you can go for the more optimal version of the 2 team splits we showed before. If you're just trying to kind of get max scores, that's great, that's what I do. But if you're honestly just looking to have a good time and get the max raid score for Relic 5, at least that's what we did, you can put it on auto, or at least a guided auto to make sure that your characters are actually actively dispelling the Droidica. So that is going to be our video for today. Let me know if you have any questions on Ki-Adi-Mundi. I do believe he's a great character. He has homes in other teams overall, but those are the main ones that we want to stick to and where you can use them in the raid. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.